Hello everyone, welcome back to the Cabral Salisbury show. We have had some complications the last few weeks, so we weren't able to crank up more episodes, but today we are back, and before we actually start, I want to mention that this is a bit of a different format. I'm using a different microphone. We're actually using Discord now, and not just low-budget Twitch. It's been giving us problems after problems. But anyway, we're going to start today's show by talking about the Celtics and what's to follow for them after a heartbreaking elimination in the first round of playoffs.
Hello everyone, Jay speaking. Starting with Boston sports, the Celtics season came to an unfortunate end after being eliminated from the playoffs in round 1. The Celtics finished the regular season with a record of 36 wins and 36 losses. Many people were quick to blame coach Brad Stevens for the team not having a better record. But perhaps he's not the real problem. In his 8 seasons with the Celtics, Stevens has led the team to 7 playoff runs as head coach. Perhaps the real issue is due to COVID-19 protocols, along with some injuries. Many players have missed a substantial amount of games this season. 38 games alone between the likes of Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Kemba Walker. I think people are losing sight of the impacts COVID-19 has had on all professional sports and are rushing to blame someone. But none of that matters now, as reports have come out that Danny Ainge will be stepping down from being the Celtics' president of operations, and Brad Stevens will be taking his place. What do you think, Sean?
I agree with you on this one, Jay. Whenever something happens, there are always those who rush to pin the blame on someone. People have to remember that precautions have to be taken no matter what, especially during a pandemic. Even in a world of professional sports, they just have to be taken. I'm sure you agree. But now that the pandemic is coming to an end, we'll see things return back to normal slowly, and not many games, being missed. As for Brad Stevens' new role with the team, hopefully this move proves to be the right one for the organization. Hopefully they can find new suitable replacement as head coach. But speaking of professional sports, let's talk about Julio Jones trade.
Yes, Julio Jones has been traded from the Atlanta Falcons to the Tennessee Titans for a 2nd and 4th round picks. Now, focusing on what led to the trade, it's no secret. Julio would be traded eventually. I mean, we've known for months that Julio wanted out of Atlanta. He even said so on a phone call with Shannon Sharpe on live television recently. For Atlanta to say they didn't know, I get that it was the only card that they could play, but to play it now just seemed pointless. Kind of makes them look stupid if you ask me. I mean, what did they think was going to happen? Did they think that they could ignore all these rumors and then all this talk would go away and that Julio would just magically be happy again being in Atlanta, playing there? Honestly, I think they're just pissed that they lost leverage in a trade deal since teams now officially knew Julio didn't want to play in Atlanta any longer. How do you feel about the Julio Jones trade?
Well, it's really hard to say. I think from what I've seen of Julio, he's a great player and a great addition to the Tennessee Titans. I don't know, however, how much of an impact he'll really have on the team's success. Granted, he now has improved their offense, but their defense took a big hit this offseason as it lost numerous veteran starters to free agency, and then to other teams such as young talented cornerback Adoree Jackson, signing a 3-year, $39 million deal with the New York Giants.
If you ask me, that Tennessee offense is stacked. I mean, between the young star receiver A.J. Brown, the beast that is Derrick Henry, and Ryan Tannehill, who has become what I believe to be a solid starting quarterback, and now they add Julio Jones. I mean, I know people are hating on their defense, but I know they lost Adoree Jackson, Malcolm Butler, and a couple others. But I think with the addition of Bud Dupree and the fact that they have Coach Mike Vrabel, I think they'll be fine. It'll be tough in the beginning, but Vrabel, I believe, is a good young coach that'll get that defense in shape. Now, do they win the division? I think so. But it'll all depend on how Carson Wentz performs under Frank Reich's offense in Indianapolis, and if the Colts defense can stay healthy this season. Now, as a Patriots fan, I wish Bill had made a move for Julio, but it is what it is. While we're on the subject of the New England Patriots, what do you think of the Patriots' first-round draft pick?
I think it was a good pick by Bill Belichick. Mac Jones is coming from Alabama, one of the best college football programs in the country, under legendary coach Nick Saban, I believe it is?
Nick Saban.
My bad. Alabama won their 18th national championship in January, with Jones leading the team to that championship win. And it's known that Mac Jones wanted to play for Bill anyways, so I think Mac Jones was the right pick for the Patriots.
Now, I think this is going to be a first for the show, but I have to disagree with you there, Sean. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think Mac Jones is going to be a total bust. I mean, he had Nick Saban as a coach, and now the great Bill Belichick. But then I remember, how many quarterbacks has Bill drafted since Brady that panned out? One that I can think of, and that's Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, I know he's injury-prone, but you can't deny that he's won 75% of the games he's played. That includes his time in New England, along with his time in San Francisco. Also, how many quarterbacks have come from notoriously good college teams that turned into great NFL quarterbacks? There's not many. There's many definitions of great NFL quarterbacks, but off the top of my head, I can only think of two. Deshaun Watson, based on pure ability, who played for Clemson, and even though I'm not a fan of him, Peyton Manning, who played for Tennessee, based on his accomplishments throughout his career.
I get what you're saying, but how can Mac Jones not pan out? He fits the old style of the Patriots when Tom Brady was there, the style they've been known to be great at all these years.
And it's funny you mentioned that, because that's how I believe Mac Jones can pan out. In fact, I think it's the only way. Mac Jones can't run, doesn't have a strong arm where he can throw the deep ball, gets frantic outside the pocket. I mean, he's a true pocket passer. I also don't like that he's never played from being behind in games, never had to be a true leader and rally his guys back to a comeback win, but that's besides the point. Supposedly, he can read defenses like nobody's business. Now, I hate to compare him to Brady, but that's what Brady is great at. You know, on top of other things, too. I mean, let's be honest here. 6 championship rings, 6 Super Bowl rings. That's never going to be done again. But, see, I think Bill played a trick on everyone. I think his plan all along was to make people believe the team was converting over to a Baltimore-style offense. Hell, they went out and got a quarterback that fit the scheme in Cam Newton. They ran the ball a lot more last season, including numerous run option plays. And then in the offseason, they went out and got, in my opinion, 2 of the best tight ends in the league, in which Baltimore's style offense uses a lot of 2 and 3 tight end sets. But what I believe now is Bill is going to fuse the dink and dunk style offense of the early 2000s Patriots with the Gronk Hernandez 2 tight end sets era of the Patriots into one offensive style, and that is how Bill is going to get the best out of Mac Jones.
Now, that's some pretty interesting stuff you said there, and I want to actually see how this pans out with Mac Jones on the Pats. But in the other news in professional sports, Vince McMahon strikes again with another poor decision.
Oh, yes, I'm sure you're talking about the WrestleMania Triple Threat title match between Reigns, Edge, and Danny Bryan. Am I correct?
That is correct. It was horrendous.
Yep. So, for those of you who don't know, Roman Reigns retained the WWE Championship against Edge and Danny Bryan at WrestleMania. And let me just say, WWE completely botched the storyline. Now, let me explain, because there's actually 2 problems here. So, number 1, Reigns is considered the quote-unquote head of the table. But this story wasn't about him. It was about Edge. Someone who, if he wasn't sidelined for 8 years, and then again last year due to injury, he would probably now be considered WWE's top guy with numerous world title reigns to back it up. But with all the build-up, Edge becoming the only the second person to enter the Royal Rumble at number 1 and win it, then to have him cut amazing, and I mean, like some of the best promos that I have ever heard about dreaming about becoming the WWE champion again and manifesting it, repeating those words, just manifesting it, manifesting the dream. The fans loved it. I loved it. And then you just squash it by having Jey Uso help Reigns retain the title after Edge had the match won. Just because Vince can't stand to see his boy lose.
If I may add, on top of that, there have been rumors that Daniel Bryan's contract is up, and there have been talks about re-signing him. However, Bryan is uncertain if he wants to come back.
But nope, they ruined it too, and that's the second problem here. And I think I'm going to let you explain this one.
Back in January, yeah, if I may add, Bryan's contract was coming up. There have been rumors that Daniel Bryan's contract is. Why did you ever have Edge win the Royal Rumble in that fashion, making it an unforgettable moment and then squash his chance of becoming WWE champion anytime soon. And why did you have Daniel Bryan lose that match at WrestleMania? Vince McMahon managed to kill two potentially great storylines just to protect his friggin' diamond boy, Roman Reigns.
It's awful. It's just awful. I'm sorry, but I am tired of seeing Roman Reigns at the top in the big title match at WrestleMania over and over and over each and every year. When he's not even a great in-ring performer, and he's not even good on the mic either.
They wanted to make Reigns a likable character by making him a heel with the support of Heyman. But the problem with that, no one wants him constantly winning over and over and headlining every single event. Edge and Daniel Bryan, however, could have made big strides for the end of their career, especially in this case of Daniel Bryan, whose career in WWE, as of now, is completely uncertain. Not to mention, no one has seen Edge since WrestleMania. Vince instead put his big sweaty man Roman in front of everything again, squashing Bryan's final championship run, and I feel this was a really poor decision amongst all the decisions they've made in WWE. And I'm still not sure I'm a fan of his character at all. Like you said, he's not really good on the mic. In the ring, he has maybe two good moves. I think he's had one decent rivalry, but that's about it. He seems to just be winning by Jey Uso's help.
Yeah, and I agree with everything you just said. Unfortunately, McMahon, it seems to me that he only cares about himself. And not about, and I'm going to quote the authority here, what's best for business.
Yeah. You know what's not best for business?
What's that?
Dave Batista wanting out of Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
I did hear about that. So, reports suggest that Dave Batista has basically complained about, and I shouldn't say complained, more like he's just concerned with his body and his health, because for him at his age, it's hard to stay that bulk for that role. So I get him wanting out. I just now knowing, just knowing what we already know about Guardians, with all the rumors that Starlord and or Rocket is set to die in Guardians 3.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it just solidifies the fact that Guardians 3 might be the last time we see the Guardians in the MCU, and I get that everybody has their time, but it just seems like it came so quickly.
Right, I have to agree. Chris Pratt's contract is coming up, due, and I'm not sure if Marvel's really going to have anything left going for it, After they lose all the Guardians, they already lost Iron Man. They kind of made Thor a joke, Fat Thor. I mean, it was funny, but it made him a joke. All these new movies don't really interest me. I think the only one that really caught my eye was Black Widow and the Eternals, but I'm not as interested to see those as I was with the original movies like Infinity War, Age of Ultron, all of that. I'm not as interested to see these newer movies like Thor: Love and Thunder. I'm not sure about that. Maybe it's just the title throwing me off here for a curveball. But that doesn't sound like a movie you really want to go in and watch for action. You know what I'm saying? That's just my opinion.
Yeah. I know what you mean, and speaking of Love and Thunder, I mean that's set to be Chris Hemsworth's last movie. I mean, they're gonna go forward with Natalie Portman and with the mighty Thor.
Right.
So it's seeming like it's coming to an end of an era for the old Avengers, and it's gonna go into this new age. Which, I mean, that's not all bad. But I would like to see more of the Guardians, especially knowing that they had such a bigger role in the Marvel universe, in the comics. Excuse me. Yeah, so, I mean, they are involved in so many stories, especially when, considering characters like Doctor Strange, who MCU is going to continue on, and, of course, Spider-Man. I mean, we can't leave him out. Marvel reportedly is already planning phases 5, 6, and 7, all of which are going to heavily center around Spider-Man, X-Men, Fantastic Four, those characters. So it's going to be exciting to see those characters, and it's going to be exciting to see what they're going to do with, Tom Holland, Spider-Man. But again, knowing what I know about the original comics, Guardians had such a bigger play, and so for them to only get 3 individual movies and then two Avengers movies.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't seem like they've gotten that recognition that they deserve.
I have to agree.
Especially, and it's funny. You mentioned Chris Pratt's contract coming up at, with Guardians 3. I mean, he has told Disney and Marvel that he wants to continue in the MCU. Unfortunately, it seems that the MCU or Marvel and Disney told him that they don't currently have any future plans for the character of Starlord.
And that's what really blows, because he could be an interesting character, I think his character in Infinity War caused one of the biggest reactions, because he freed Thanos, because they had him beat on that planet. They had him beat. And then he let his emotions get to him, and he got Thanos back on his feet. And people were pissed.
I remember people being pissed about that.
But
I do, which is kind of funny, because, I mean, if you think about it, that had to happen.
Right.
Because if you remember what Doctor Strange said, I mean, out of, 14 billion plus possibilities, I think it was, or something like that, there was only one that they defeated, Thanos. And you have to assume that Iron Man's sacrifice, and then, of course, Star-Lord helping, basically causing Thanos to, get free and wipe out half of civilization. You have to assume that was all part of that one outcome.
Right.
So,
I just think. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Alright, so I just thought there's a lot more to that character they could have explored. Like, Guardians, I believe, they introduced Star-Lord. And I felt like he was a pretty interesting character to follow. He was the son of an Eternal, I believe, or I think he was Eternal, or Ego, the living planet. And yet he was human, He was a mix of the two, but he showed emotion, unlike what Ego did. And, obviously a god. I like how he shows off his human side, but also rejecting that power that Ego actually could have granted him, because he could have had it all. But him being a protagonist with emotion and, wanting to save his friends, like the hero, kind of like being a hero, that's what I really enjoyed about his character. And, and not being able to see him, that bozo saving the world with his dimwit team, is really not going to be the same.
No, it's really not. So, I mean, I'm hoping they figure something out. I'm hoping that the rumors of Star-Lord and or possibly Rocket dying in Guardians 3 isn't true. Unfortunately, only time will tell, and unfortunately, Marvel and Disney has not denied such rumors. And these rumors have been going back since Infinity War. So.
Yeah, that's terrible. At Disney and Marvel, I'm not sure they know what they're doing at this point. I mean, let's just look at some recent franchises here. We've seen Star Wars go off the deep end just a little bit. And now we're seeing Marvel kind of take a little spike down, in my opinion, anyway. They had a big spike up in views when Spider-Man was coming out. You had all the new Avengers coming out. You had all these interesting side movies, Doctor Strange. But now, you have all these side movies that maybe, 2 movies are going to be interesting to watch.
I know what you mean.
I think... Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I just think that they could have done better naming it and teasing said movies, because the press for these, or I guess the coverage of these and how they're getting pushed out, the teasing and the rumors, it's not really hyping anyone up for them, to be honest. Black Widow, I think the big reason why that movie's getting pushed big time is because Black Widow, spoiler alert, if you still haven't watched Endgame, Black Widow dies, and people want to see what her story was beforehand, And people want to see Taskmaster. He's a fan favorite villain in the MCU.
I know. When is he going to get his share?
Right.
And that's the thing. They're introducing all these new characters, which is great. It's cool to see them, hit the big screen if you're a true Marvel Comics fan. But at the same time, it's when you're doing this, you're also speeding up the timeline and speeding up the story. And You're not able to give such certain characters like a Taskmaster the time that they deserve.
Right. And we have other heroes that could really get their own movies or more movies. What if we had a Scarlet Witch? I know we had a show based on Scarlet Witch, but what if we had a movie based on all of her journey after she lost Vision? You know, after Endgame or after Infinity War, I guess. That would be.
Yeah.
I mean, we got WandaVision, but what if we got a movie length, or I guess a movie just based on that story? That'd be interesting to see, and see how she interacts with other characters like Doctor Strange. Obviously, we could probably see more interactions with her and Agatha Harkness. That'd be really interesting to see in a movie picture.
I agree with that. And another character that I think people would like to see more of. Now, this is kind of funny, but Deadpool. I mean,
Right.
Let's face it. He's gonna be a part of the MCU, but how big of a part of it is he gonna be? I mean, let's face it. Disney is gonna childproof him.
Yeah.
They're gonna childproof him. They're gonna take away that rated R humor, and I don't agree with that at all. That's not who Deadpool is. I mean, there is nobody, no character that has Deadpool's personality, his
Right.
charisma, his humor.
Right.
And I think the casting of Ryan Reynolds into that role was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because he's the only person that comes to mind who has that kind of humor.
Right.
And speaking of Reynolds, there's reports that he is trying to take control of the movies, the Deadpool franchise, from Disney, because he's afraid of that childproofing. I totally support him. I hope it works out. But let's face it, Disney's Disney.
Right.
A
mega corporation versus one actor.
Right.
So.
But I will say this. Now with Fox and Sony, being owned by Disney, I mean that just opened up so many windows, so many possibilities. As I mentioned before, they are talking about phases 5, 6, 7, especially with again those characters that I mentioned before, Spider-Man, X-Men, and the Fantastic Four, and they're talking about a lot of crossovers. I mean, because Sony's still going to do their cinematic universe,
right?
But they're also going to acknowledge and do crossover movies with the MCU, which I think is amazing. Just off the top of my head, they're saying expect to see. Now, I think you're going to be a fan of this one. They're saying to expect a cameo from Tom Hardy's Venom in Madness of the Multiverse.
That's going to be insane.
Right?
That's
right?
going to be insane.
And they're saying that's how they're going to set up basically their own version of Into the Spider-Verse.
That would actually be insane. I would be up for that 100%. But it's Disney. They aren't the best at handling their franchises and
they'll find a way to mess something up.
Because if you're right, if they get their hands on Deadpool, they're gonna childproof him and make him an idiot. I mean, he's already an idiot, but he's gonna be a childproofed idiot, and that's gonna not be.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be as enjoyable. It's just like if you make Darth Vader and you give him a glow toy instead of a lightsaber. It's a plushie. It's not gonna be the same.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. I think only time's gonna tell, what's gonna happen. Like you said, I think there's some things that people are excited for, some things that people aren't. But I mean, like I said, only time's gonna tell what what Marvel and what Sony and Disney is gonna do, and I think we just gotta hope for the best right now.
I agree.
As for Guardians 3, who knows if that's really gonna be the Guardians' last movie? I surely hope not, but I don't run the companies. I don't make the decisions. I don't get paid the big bucks. So,
unfortunately,
we'll
not.
Right? Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, I hope it doesn't happen. I would most likely. I would most likely actually go to the theater to watch that movie. I would be hyped to see that, see our fan favorite characters again. Other than just Groot.
Yeah.
But we're gonna have to see. We have to see what the future holds and what Disney does. And see if they make any decisions. If they're anything like Vince McMahon,
okay, we're in trouble.
We are in
we're
trouble.
in trouble. That's the case.
We are in some deep trouble. Well, that was it for today's stories in today's episode of the Cabral Salisbury Show. Quite interesting to see what's going on in the world of professional sports, Marvel, Do you have anything else to add before we make some big announcements?
So I just want to say thank you everybody for tuning in, and I also want to mention that a new Clueless J is in the works, and look out for the debut of J Sports Review. That's right, it is going to be out soon. I'm currently working on the first episode, and I'm looking forward to sharing it with you guys.
Also, anyone who's watching this episode, make sure to go follow our Instagram account. Make sure you go follow us there. We'll be posting updates, video clips, and we'll see you there. Make sure you post your thoughts down in either comment section, and everyone have a great day.
Have a good one. And remember, guys, that's at Gridiron underscore gaming underscore Inc.
Alright, I'll put that on the screen, and hope you all have a great day.
All right. See you guys.